What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm making another video. I made one a little bit ago earlier, and it was kind of long. I'm going to try and get through this one a bit quickly, but there's another article that I want to read to you guys, read through, and talk a little bit about because I found it interesting, and it's another set of data points to look at. And this comes from Alan Pupar from Sports Illustrated. He's obviously Dolphins writer, and this is what he had to write. So the title is the Pro Football Focus view of the Dolphins' offensive talent. The Miami Dolphins apparently still have a long way to go when it comes to assembling elite offensive players. So real quick, I just want to say that this is one of the many things that I've talked about, right? Because when you're talking about the plan, right, that this organization has and so on and so forth, it's pretty multifaceted, right? And there's a lot of moving parts that go along with it, and the conversation is very nuanced. So, part of some of the overall reasons why I don't think that this organization is going the right way is one, because I disagree with the tanking philosophy and doing what they did in 2019. I don't think this current regime has shown that they are good at player evaluation or development or any of that stuff, right? But another part is that, they preach about versatility so much, and they value it so much. And it's a good thing. It's a great thing to have on your team and for your players to be able to possess versatility. But you need to have players that firmly fall into those spots and can play at a high level. Additionally, I've talked about how there are literally no superstars on this roster other than, and when I say superstars, I mean, Pro Bowl or all pro players, etc., right? And then players that statistically produce at an extremely high level, right? And so Xavier Howard is the only one, and Jason Sanders, I would say, are the only two players that would fall under that category for the Dolphins. Both of which, let's remind you, were Adam Gase picks. But so that's concerning, right? That's massively concerning because they don't have really any superstars. And as far as I'm concerned, at least right now, I don't really see. There's some potential for, maybe some superstars to emerge from the players that these people, Flores and Greer and Marvin Allen and Reggie McKenzie, right? That these people in the front office and the scouting department and the coaching staff have brought in, potentially Tua, right? Maybe Jalen Waddle, maybe Jalen Phillips. But as of right now, there are no superstars or, Pro Bowl, all-pro worthy players, right? At least, none that have proven it yet, right? Because for the 2021 class, they're rookies still. They haven't proven anything yet in the NFL. Some of those players have to prove that they can stay healthy. And then, for the earlier classes, nobody has emerged yet from the 2019 or the 2020 class as a legit fucking superstar. So let's get into this. The Miami Dolphins clearly are hoping to become more explosive and more productive on offense in 2021 after ranking in the 20s in practically every statistical category last season. The one major exception was points scored, where the Dolphins ranked 15th in part because of the help they got from the defense and special teams, which, let's just make a quick side note of how that particular stat is a little bit misleading and not completely accurate, because points scored is an offensive statistic, right? It's a statistic that applies only to the offense, but it also incorporates special teams and defensive scores, right? So just quick side note, they do have, obviously there are other statistical breakdowns that do defensive scoring and stuff like that, whatever, blah blah blah, but that one particular stat is all encompassing. Anyway, in the offseason, the Dolphins brought in speedy wide receivers Will Fuller and rookie Jalen Waddle, along with rookie tight end Hunter Long and offensive tackle Liam Eichenberg. But the offense still lacks elite players. Based off Pro Football Focus's rankings heading into the 2021 season. Pro Football Focus ranked the top 32 players at every position on offense, explaining that its rankings were based on grading every player on every play and tapping into multiple years of data to project future performance. So, you know, they take the past several years, right? And what they did over the past several years, whether it be college or, you know, in the pros, they, you know, look at the tape, all that stuff, right? We go beyond just last season's performances, and the grading works to isolate each player's performance from that of his supporting cast, making for more effective projections. Based on those, and so again, there's so many different ways, and this is super nuanced. There's so many different ways to look at it, right? When you're talking about individual players and their performance and where they're projected to go, the you know, the performance of their supporting cast has an effect on that, right? And it's part of it. But in this context and in this conversation, it's less the focus, right? When you're talking about the success of the entire team, then it's obviously more the focus of everybody, and then how individual performances affect the big scale, the big picture. Whereas in this context, it's more, you know, focusing on the individuals, and then maybe a little bit of, you know, contextual information on the supporting cast and how that affected the individuals. But anyway, based on those Pro Football Focus rankings, the Dolphins better hope their offense's sum is greater than the total of its parts. Pro Football Focus broke down their rankings on offense in 7 positions: quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, centers, guards, and tackles. And the Dolphins had only 5 players ranked among the top 32 at their position. So obviously they have, you know, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight ends, but then they actually did break the line down into guards, tackles, and center. They didn't differentiate between right and left, but they did break it down into the guard and tackle and center. Only one of them, tight end Mike Gesicki, was ranked higher than 24th. He came in at number 8. So, the other 4 players ranked at least among the top 32 at their position were quarterback Tua Tagovailoa at 29th, wide receivers Fuller at 25th and Devontae Parker at 27th, and guard Robert Hunt at 24th. Having Hunt at 24 certainly is interesting, considering the 2020 second-round pick played tackle as a rookie, and offensive line coach Lamel Jean-Pierre said this week no decision has been made as to where he'll play in 2021, although he is expected to kick in to guard. This speaks to Hunt's potential and the belief among many draft analysts that his best position coming out of Louisiana Lafayette was guard and not tackle. And we'll have to see if he does make that transition, and if if it works how they expect and how they hope it to. With Parker, his ranking no doubt is affected by his inability to stay healthy, which has led to him playing a full season only once since arriving as a first-round pick in 2015. Some of that has to go for Fuller too. He's had injury history and obviously got suspended for 6 games for PED policy breaking, right? Anyway, that said, the Dolphins are one of 8 teams to have 2 players ranked in the top 32 at wide receiver, along with Atlanta, Buffalo, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, which has 3, Seattle, Cleveland, and those that have 3, Tampa Bay has 3, Seattle, Cleveland, and the LA Rams. Finally, we get to Tua, and his ranking isn't entirely out of line based on what happened last year, though it's eye-opening to see him placed behind quarterbacks like Jared Goff, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, and Saints combination of Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. Before I get to, and I'm almost done with this article, but before I get to the bottom part here, and this is what Pro Football Focus had to write about him, look, I think that he's overall better than, you know, those other guys. I think he's probably better than Sam Darnold. I think it's reasonable that he could be better than all of those quarterbacks that, you know, were listed in this article. Goff, Jones, Jameis Winston, right? Again, I don't think it's going to be with the Dolphins, though. And no matter what, I'm always going to have injury concerns with Tua because he's proven to be an injury-prone player at a position that gets fucking hunted, literally gets hunted by defensive players that want to smash his face in, and he's undersized, right? So no matter what, I'm always going to have that. But if he's at least in the right system with the right coaches and a good supporting cast, etc., I think he could be really good in the league. But he does have, the consensus is that his athleticism is just about average or whatever. And he's not particularly great under pressure, and he does have other things that he has to work on as well, including, his deep passing attempts and accuracy, his confidence, his knowledge of the playbook and knowledge of defenses, etc. So there's lots of things, but also one of the things that nobody ever points out is something that I have pointed out, and that they point out here. It's hard. So let me get to this. This is what they had to say. Excuse me. It's hard to adjust to the speed of the game as a rookie, especially when you don't know when you're going to be pulled for a savvy veteran. Tua has an opportunity this year to take control of the offense and show he belongs. And he does, right? And he has to. But it's not all on him. Overall, the bigger factor in his success is how well this Dolphins organization has done at actually building around him. That is the bigger factor, unquestionably. That's going to play a much bigger role in his success and whether or not things work out with him in this organization. Did they get the right people on the offensive line? Did they get the right skill position players? Is their defense going to be in the middle of the pack or higher, right? Top 10 or whatever, right? All of those things have to pan out as well. Anyway, continuing on. The Dolphins continue to make solid roster moves through trades, free agency, and the draft to surround the young quarterback with weapons. I mean, I disagree with that. I don't think that these players are the right ones. I think it's going to come crashing down, as you know. But hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully they prove to be. Tua was exceptionally conservative last year with only 7 big-time throws all season. That's not the worst thing, but he also had 13 turnover-worthy plays. Now, this is the first time that I've actually seen anybody in the media or anybody that grades, blah, 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 whatever, actually mention. Now, I have gone through his film, and they said, in their rankings, they evaluated every single snap. And so did I. I went through every game that he played in and watched every single throw. And I came up with 16 would-be turnovers. They have 13 here. Okay, so even if you think that I was wrong about a couple of them, or believe this number, that's still a fucking lot. And even if that was the case, then, so anyway, like I said, it's just something that nobody ever points out. And it's a pretty big factor in the whole thing. Like, you can't just ignore that. That is super relevant, and that's something that has to be taken into account when doing your evaluations and projections, right? And so anyway, I just found that to be a really fascinating article. And look, again, I'll say this again, there's a lot of boom potential, but there's also a ton of bust potential with this team. And it's the moves that they've made and their plan, the plan that they have for this team, this organization, heavily relies on big risks, giant fucking risks, right? When it comes to players that were reaches and or have, major injury concerns, et cetera, right? And so I hope that I am wrong about my projections and my evaluations about the situation, but, when I evaluate the full context and the full picture, to me, it points more in that direction. Now, I want them to prove me wrong. This is the year that they have to do it, especially considering, as we've mentioned numerous times, the expectations are set absurdly high. And I just don't think that Brian Flores and Chris Greer are going to last if they do not meet those expectations, because I believe that Stephen Ross is going to, hit the reset button otherwise, because he's too old and too impatient at this point, to let things bear out. My base philosophy, even though I don't like Flores and Greer, or this current regime, right? And whatever, Marvin Allen, Reggie McKenzie, I don't like the current structure and the decisions that they've made and the path that they've taken this team. My base philosophy is an organization needs 5 years to be able to fucking put it together. I don't believe that they are going to make it past this season if they do not win 10 plus games, compete in the division, and at least make it to the playoffs. If they, and look, I mean, they could end up having a bunch of injuries, and it will be somewhat their fault because they love to take guys with, concerning injury histories. But, at the same time, it's still also, you can't control that, right? Or when they happen, but they could, man. They're a handful of injuries, easily a handful of injuries away from, the entire roster falling apart, right? If Tua gets injured, if Xavier Howard gets injured, if Waddle gets injured, if Phillips gets injured, it's pretty much a wrap at that point, right? If one of the offensive linemen gets injured. So, there you go. 5 players, fucking Tua, Xavier Howard, or any one of those causes a significant ripple, right? So we'll have to wait and see how this year plays out, but this is the year. They have to fucking get it done, and if they don't, and look, man, not just to fucking keep their jobs and to keep this, this train rolling, but to convince, somebody like me who, wants to see this team but doesn't believe in the process, doesn't believe just simply because they tell me I have to, right? And with the rest of the data thrown in, I just don't believe it. The way to prove me wrong is to win 10 plus games again, make that the fact, make that the reality, and then to do that, they're going to have to show significant improvements across the board, on offense, on defense, on special teams, particular units like the offensive line at specific positions like quarterback, etc., etc. So I'm not going to have any problem with, changing my evaluation if that's where the facts and the data lead. And I hope that is where the facts and the data lead. But until it's in history and written in stone, and they've, met or exceeded those expectations, well, to me, the data shows otherwise. And so that's what I believe, and that's what I'm going to consistently, confidently project from my end, with the hopes that I'm wrong, and just see how it goes. And like I said, man, and just as the final comment here, people have asked, well, what if Tua does take that next step, and what if, the offensive line is great and blah, blah, blah. Now, asking that to a non-Dolphins fan, okay, I get the evaluation, especially if it's like, a Bills or a Jets fan. I get the evaluation could be different for them. But for me as a Dolphins fan, that's super easy. If the facts take us there and they, make market improvements across the board and play at that level and make it to the playoffs, oh, I'm all about it. That's the easiest fucking, change in stance that I'll take, and I love to make it, right? But I ask this, what if I'm right? And what if, what if things don't go as planned? And, what if they do have major injuries at premier positions because they like to take injury-prone guys, right? Or because they decide to use their 6th overall pick on special teams. What if I am right about those things? And the big picture, overall, what if they do have a disappointing season, end up only winning maybe 6 games or whatever, and then Flores and Greer get fired? What if then, right? And I get it. I get that for Dolphins fans, especially over the past couple decades, most notably with Stephen Ross as the majority owner, things have not exactly been bright and, exciting for this Dolphins team and as a fan. And it would be heartbreaking if that happens. I get it. But ignoring it and not acknowledging it, at least as the very real possibility that it is, because it has a significant probability of becoming true and playing out that way. If you ignore it, then you just set yourself up for immense, massive disaster. I'd rather prepare myself for the worst possible situation, acknowledge all of the flaws and the negatives and all of that stuff, while also acknowledging the positive for reasons to be hopeful, You know, but hope doesn't make reality. It doesn't make truth. You know, you can hope it all day, but it doesn't make it reality. So I'd rather prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and be surprised at the end of the day and say, man, they really took it home. And for 2 consecutive years, blah, 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 they made 10 plus wins and actually made it to the playoffs. And now you can say, hey, maybe we really are going in the right fucking direction. That's where I want to be at the end of the year, but we will find out one way or the other. All right, with that, I'm going to get out of here. Hope you guys appreciate my perspectives. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.